All right, welcome to another episode of the Political Playbook podcast. I'm Wyatt, and this is my co-host Aaron. And today we've got a jam-packed docket for you guys to go over. Tons of stories, tons of scandals, tons of things to cover. So we're going to kick it off here with the speech Pete Hegseth gave in Quantico, Virginia. Basically, all the brass decided to come and listen to him lecture. This, so we have all these generals, Darren, who are going to get lectured by a draft dodger and a drunk major, and they're going to be told how to do basically everything that they've dedicated their lives to. So I just thought that that was interesting. You want to talk about the blind leading the blind here? Pete Hegseth was trying to tell a room of generals that have, I think I heard something, it was like they have 2,500 years of experience on the job. And Pete Hegseth is going to lecture them about war fighting, embracing the warrior culture. I just thought that the whole thing was cringy. Before we get into like the weeds into why it was cringy, I just wanted to get like, what did you think of this? Like, did you think this was anything at all, or did you think it was absurd? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have mixed feelings. Mostly, uh, it was kind of stupid, mostly, but he did. I Pete, that is, Hegseth. He did raise a few good points. You know, Generals should be fit, I suppose. Maybe we need to, reduce the amount of women in the military. That's stuff I agree with to an extent. But largely it was kind of just silly. I mean, and I think it might have been a stunt. I don't know. When this meeting was announced a week ago, I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna make an announcement about Russia. We're gonna go to war with Russia or something." I was being a little hysterical, I suppose. If you recall, I texted you and a mutual friend of ours in a group chat about this meeting and how big of a deal it might be. But and at the time, in fairness, it kind of made sense because just prior to that, Trump, the UN, uh, you know, was convened. The UN General Assembly was convened, and there were all these, you know, talks, and Trump made a Truth Social post saying that Ukraine could win and perhaps even take some of Russia's territory. And Russia had been flying drones over like Poland and I think maybe even Denmark. So, if it was in the air, it was in the air. I'm like, oh boy, this is the moment. We're going to start really ratcheting up the pressure against Russia, and all the generals are going to be briefed. But no, it was like with everything in this administration, it's kind of silly, and maybe they convened the meeting almost as a bluff to Putin, and then by the time they got around to it, they just had to make Hegseth pull some stuff out of his butt. I mean, that's totally possible. But yeah, I don't think it was warranted to call all these people in. To me, that seems like a huge risk. I mean, what if somebody blew up the building? Then we'd really be screwed. So overall stupid. But what are your thoughts? Do you agree overall stupid, or are there any points of Hegseth's that kind of resonate with you? What do you think?
Well, overall, I thought it was pretty silly, the whole thing. Well, maybe not even silly. I think it's just performative. I mean, we see this over and over in the Trump administration where it's almost like appearing to do something is as important to them as actually doing something. And we're going to come back to that later whenever we get to immigration, especially. But here, I mean, why, if you were trying to install a culture within the brass or change like the way things have been done or like institute a new era, a philosophy within the United States military. I think that all of us could broadly be on board with that. But whenever you turn it into this public spectacle where it's almost like this embarrassing, shameless thing where you literally like are being as cringy as possible. You're waiting for like the generals to clap. They don't clap. They're just standing there like stone faced. I don't know. I just thought that the whole thing was silly. In terms of like the content of what he said, I thought some of it was way, way too out of line. I did agree with the grooming standards though. Like that's just like a me thing. I'm just kind of old school in that way. But yeah, I think everyone should be clean shaven. Uh but that's just me.
Yeah.
Um
What did you find out of line? Do you think just his attitude in general, or was
yeah,
there a
the
specific
the
point
the
that?
stones on this guy to tell the highest ranking members who have dedicated their life to this country and the protection of that and these military alliances and war gaming, the gall to tell them that like you guys have lost your step, you don't know how to fight anymore, but I, a drunk Fox News host, I have got the answers. I just thought that that was insane, to be completely honest with you. I could not believe the gall. Um, and like I
Yeah,
said,
I
it's
mean,
all for performance. And just to get into what he said, I thought like some of the stuff he said was just way out of line. Like specifically what he said. Yeah, he shit talked, climate change, the rules of engagement are woke.
We fight to win. We unleash overwhelming and punishing violence on the enemy. We also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No more politically correct and overbearing rules of engagement. Just common sense, maximum lethality, and authority for warfighters.
Like, what in the fuck are we talking about? The rules of engagement are woke. The United States is part of the reason we have rules of engagement. And you know who did that? The World War II veterans. That's who did that. Do they know how to warfight, Pete Hegseth? Like, I don't understand any of this stuff. But
well, no, in fact, I wish I don't I don't recall him expounding too much upon the woke uh, rules of engagement, but that's something I'd like to dive into more because I wonder what he means by that. Like, say we invaded Venezuela and our troops just, maybe were hesitant to, blow the head off of some woman who was possibly holding or had a bomb or something under her shirt. I don't know. I wonder what he means by that. But a lot of it was good. Uh, the grooming. I'd say I agree with you on that. The gender neutral highest male standards. I agree with that. I think I don't know when they started making the standards so lax, but I remember when I was in high school, one of my friends was gonna go to the army, and he was telling me the requirements, and it really was not much. Like a single pull up he needed to do, and then like I forget how many push ups. But yeah, it didn't seem like it was that rigorous. So I'm glad they're kind of if they're gonna raise standards, I think that's probably for the best.
do you think that they're going to raise standards or do you think they're just going to equalize? Or I guess the word that they're using is uniform standards with men and women.
If they're well, even if it is just uniform, I think that's probably for the best. I mean,
Well, specifically with combat roles, I don't really see a huge problem with that, especially because the standards don't appear to be absurdly high, anyways. So I see no reason.
yeah,
We're talking about combat roles. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like to be a cook. Okay. I can
yeah,
totally wrap
definitely.
my head around it. So.
Yeah, I mean, if they're in a support role, then I think, especially if it's like, a cook or something, then yeah, you might as well drop the standards almost altogether. But I mean, if it's like, they have like the technicians that work on the aircraft, the vehicle, the Humvees and all that. So I mean, I'd be okay if they wanted to, make the standards lower for those guys, and I think they already do. So, hopefully they're not making, like the cooks and the technicians perform at the same exact level the combat guys are, because then it might become like a recruiting problem, because how many people are you going to get that are going to be able to have all these skills and be athletic? So I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to look more into the nitty gritty to form a full opinion, but the directionally I do think it's a good change.
Yeah, I also, before I get to Trump and his little I guess you would call it his sidebar or his Keystone speech, right? Hegseth did say something that I was a little confused about. He was talking about how one error shouldn't make your entire career.
But you should not pay for earnest mistakes for your entire career. And that's why today, at my direction, we're making changes to the retention of adverse information on personnel records that will allow leaders with forgivable, earnest, or minor infractions to not be encumbered by those infractions in perpetuity. People make honest mistakes, and our mistakes should not define an entire career.
They seem to think that he was referring to like whistleblowers, sexual assault claims within the military, shit like that. And I'm like, ooh, that's odd. He didn't really expand on what he meant by that, and he didn't give any examples, probably as cover. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. I'm not gonna say that that's bad because we don't really know yet what he means by that because he won't elaborate. But that's at the very least
Well,
something odd to say.
uh, yeah, I mean that's my interpretation, kind of of the statement, and I guess I'm in disagreement here. I tend to disagreement with you. That is, I tend to agree with Hegseth that, I mean, if you kill one civilian, and it was, truly a mistake. I mean, of course, he didn't fully elaborate, but I don't think that. I mean, it's war; things happen. If you're deliberately like going in and shooting up a household of and like wiping out a family or something, that's a totally different story. But sometimes civilians get caught in the crossfire or they're mistaken for combatants.
You definitely don't want to be ended up justifying like oh, it was some village in Vietnam that they like completely like bad faith massacred. It wasn't like an accident killing. It was just like bop 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 like because they're Vietnamese. We definitely want to avoid that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't think that that's what he meant, right? I only bring that up to almost defend you and saying that like if it's an honest mistake, I can kind of wrap my head around that, but like if he meant that in the sexual assault way or in the whistleblower way, and again, we don't know, then it's like what the fuck are we doing?
Well,
So,
I won't ever I think if you actually rape someone, then yeah, you probably have to go. Like you really just can't excuse raping like fellow army men or women. But maybe you make an off colored joke, or you flirt, and maybe it's poorly received. I don't think you should be. Yeah, if that's what he meant, then yeah, I don't think the punishment should be too harsh, or maybe there should be no punishment at all. I mean, I recall just an anecdote. After I had graduated, but there was a boy and a girl on the swim team of my high school, and this guy made a kind of off color sexually charged joke, But it was kind of like a flirtatious joke as well to this girl, and she did not receive it well at all, and basically got him kicked off the team. And I heard the joke. I can't recall it precisely, but I do remember that I was like, well, it's probably not something you should be saying all the time, but ultimately it was harmless. But nevertheless, he got kicked off the team for it in the ascendant woke era. So I'm sure that the overall climate in America played into that. But with all that being said, if these sexual harassment, quote unquote, offenses, I'm skeptical of how pervasive they are, or of because of incidents like this. I mean, there are legitimate incidents of it, but there are also times when people just kind of freak out and don't know how to take a joke or don't know how to just let something be. Life is complicated. So
Did you see any of what Trump said at all? So Trump was there and he gave the speech there at the very end once Hegseth was done, and he basically tells the generals like, "Oh my God, you can clap, everyone smile, Jesus, everyone fuck, relax, calm down," and then he gets real serious and he goes, "By the way, I've been telling Pete Hegseth that we should use you guys on American cities. Like, wouldn't that just be fucking awesome? There's a problem we have: the enemy within, the enemy within." And it's like, what what are we doing, man?
And I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
Like, is that not? I mean, listen, I know you're not some hardcore liberal guy, and you're not who Trump means when he says the enemy within, but don't you at least see like the problem with the president of the United States saying that to the top of the brass?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I could see how it could go in a
In
wrong way,
theory,
but well,
you can only imagine
honestly,
how this is wrong in theory.
well, honestly, I think it's kind of based, but I mean, like if he actually like goes through with it and like he's declared Antifa like a terrorist organization. If he rounded those people up and gave them some jail sentences, I would be happy with that.
But don't you think
It's
that's silly? Don't you think that's another one of those performative things I was talking about? Because I'm sure Antifa is not a highly organized group with a directory, right? Like ISIS or ISIL or Al Qaeda or right. It's not like
it,
those, right? It's not even like the Klan where it's isolated versions of that. It's basically just like online cells that cluster in groups of like four, and it's like, what? We're supposed to believe it's what this mastermind underground domestic terrorist group, and it's like, don't you think that that's a little silly?
well, it's certainly decentralized. Yeah, there is no Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi of Antifa. There's no single person that we could point to and be like, oh yes, there's their leader, and this is
Is
their
there a
structure.
single person you can point to before we catch them?
No, no, it's
Well, there
all.
you
I
go.
mean, well, it's all very. Again, it's very decentralized. Another. Oh, well, okay. Well, let me say this. It's very decentralized. There's little chapters throughout the U.S. Like you said, though, it's primarily they an online phenomenon. They get together, they meet up, uh, they meet each other online, but ultimately, yeah. I mean, do they have like buildings they own? Do they have assets? No. Here's the thing though, and it's almost uh, a little too late because Antifa really hasn't had a presence since like 2020.
Since the
You
Florida
know, I
riots.
yeah, because they weren't even there in 2021 at the start of 2021, January 6th. I mean, if Antifa is going to be somewhere, you'd think they'd be there at January 6th, and maybe you could say, oh,
Well, they
well,
sent
there
the
was
FBI
just,
instead, don't you know?
oh, yes, yes. So all the Antifa members were busy that day. They were at their
They were
normal
at their
jobs
day
at
jobs.
yeah. I think by 2020, I don't know, maybe they had gotten it out of their system. Maybe they'd been deactivated to an extent by handlers, if they do have handlers. I don't know. I don't know what to make of what happened to Antifa. Uh, in fact, Richard Spencer, the once uh, you know de facto leader of the alt right back in the 2016, 2017, 2018 years, before it kind of diminished and then faded into obscurity. Even he's I've heard him discuss this. He's like, I don't know where Antifa went because they weren't at January 6th. They were in the summer of Floyd BLM riots, but in those intermittent like 6 months or whatever, they had somehow disappeared. So I just don't know what to make of it because they seem to have a strong presence in 2020. So it just seems odd that they've basically disappeared. I mean, especially when we have people like Blood Tribe and Patriot Front walking the streets. I mean, there's just no Antifa counter presence at any of these marches. So it's odd. So too little, too late by the Trump administration to go after them, anyways. But
Well, I'll be honest with you. I can't believe I have to explain this, but I guess I'm going to. the the idea that the president of the United States is going to tell in what is supposed to be like a culture changing moment in the philosophy and the doctrine of the military that like, hey, just so you guys are aware, we totally want and plan to use you guys on American cities to take care of the enemy within. And I'm not going to rigidly describe who the enemy within is because the enemy within can be anybody I oppose at any particular moment. And if you don't see that as a problem, then I fear we are too far gone in America. I mean, it's as simple, Darren, as if you saw a Democrat in power say the exact same thing about maybe an ideology you subscribe to. Don't you see how that could immediately change your opinion? And I understand some people's feelings are that like if it's not going to happen to me, not only do I am I not opposed to it, but I actually support it whenever it's to my political foes. I really understand that, but that is not America. All right, this we have to rebuild a tolerance, right, in our political foes because if we don't, then all of the things that this country is built upon carries no weight. The only merit of like political free speech is whenever it comes at the expense of somebody you dislike. The only time it takes on moral agency is whenever you're using that to defend somebody's rights who you don't like, who you don't care about, who is not your friend, right? I mean, am I making sense or am I just talking gibberish?
no, you make sense. Here's the thing.
And I hope I mean
Um,
that's not me just giving a speech to, feel good. Like I actually believe that about America. So I hope you don't take it that way. I'm not like being a character right now.
oh, no, you're fine. Here's the thing. I don't think Trump is gonna like arrest anyone who didn't have it coming, though. I mean, I don't think he's gonna go to the nearest coffee shop and Pilates class and
Right, but
you
that
know
we cannot trust to always be at the discretion of the president, right? Because you can get crazy people in there. I'm not interested in it. I go somewhere else. I don't want it. I just go sell it to somebody else.
I just don't see him. I mean, he's already done some pretty egregious things in terms of, clamping down on
They already told him.
pro-Palestine protesters, right? Like earlier this year, we covered that. But beyond that, I don't think he's really, in terms of free speech offenses. In terms of cracking down on the dissent of individuals. Beyond that, I don't see him like cracking down on New York Times readers. I think what he's going to do is, maybe if we're, if it's not just a bunch of show, if it's actual, good stuff, then I think maybe he deploys troops to the inner cities of like, Chicago, Detroit, really clamps down on crime. This is how I'm kind of interpreting what he's doing. And then, a lot of these Antifa folks, they are actually like criminals. I mean, they very nasty people. They do engage in violence,
There's
and
very
and for
fine
that
people on
reason,
both sides of this argument.
yeah.
They're
Well,
very
okay, I'll
fine
have you
people
know
on
that
it.
the alt right was totally slandered in the Charlottesville rally
All right.
because
Go ahead and finish. I'll concede that I was just making a joke. I'll just make it. But listen,
but anyways,
go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead and finish up.
these Antifa people are, you know, many of them have committed quite a few crimes, and they do function a bit like terrorists. I saw in the LA riots this year. Now I don't know how many Antifa members were present, but they were like throwing rocks off the overpass onto cars. To me, that's like a serious offense. I think if you're caught doing that, yeah, you deserve some jail time. Maybe not a huge sentence, but I mean, you could theoretically kill somebody doing that. So, yeah, I mean, I do think these people should be pursued. And if Trump does step over the line, then I'll call it out, just like I called it out
Okay.
with the Mahmoud Khalil,
Just to
that girl Ozturk.
Okay,
Yeah,
but here's the thing. All right, and this is just to wrap this up because we got to move on. But here's the thing, Darren. That whole like, well, I'll just call him out whenever he steps out of line, but until he steps out of line, I'm totally cool with it. Makes total sense to me. That only works when we have a legal system that allows for punitive correction, right? So I'm sure as you know, the Supreme Court has said that any action done while in good faith, like as the president, right, as an action to defend the security of this country, he cannot be charged criminally, right? So there's arguably nothing he could do other short of like total mutiny of this country that we could go back later and be like, "Whoa, he crossed the line." You would wag the finger at him. You would be like, "Whoa, I totally criticize you for that." And then it's not going to matter because we cannot criminally prosecute him for violating the rights of citizens. And if we can't do that, then we just have to full stop saying no. Yeah, just to let the audience know in case they weren't filled in, there was an ICE raid in Chicago not that long ago, and there's actually been ICE raids all over the country. Masked men in the streets coming to grab your legal and sometimes illegal immigrants. In this particular one, there were 300 federal agents, right? They broke in the dead of night. They used everything like vehicles, trucks, drones, fucking Black Hawk helicopters. They were armed with everything. Fully automatic assault rifles, sniper rifles, flashbangs. They had a camera crew and they set up cameras like mounted onto buildings so that way they could like visually capture and audibly capture this entire event, right? Just fucking wild, right? They end up capturing 37 illegals, right? It's actually funny. Some of these people that they caught, Darren, were actually bussed to Chicago from Texas by Greg Abbott. So, some of the people that were trafficked from Texas to Chicago ended up getting caught. The big thing
amazing.
here is that, yeah, right. The other big thing here is that there were four children that are U.S. citizens that were detained. It took them several hours to get home. Some of these people were held at gunpoint. They were unclothed, some of them, and they were zip tie handcuffed. I'm sure they were scared shitless, right? I mean, these are little kids. I mean, and then not just that, the other like citizens, mostly black in this particular apartment complex, had weapons drawn onto them, including an elderly woman, other children. It total nightmare. Darren, what are your thoughts? I just kind of rambled and gave off the facts there.
Look, I mean, you said the number of illegals that they arrested was in the 30s, and we had however many federal agents there. So on one hand, it's not an efficient use of resources. On the other hand, or in the same vein, I should say, it's this shock and awe type stuff. You know, they're setting up for the photo op. They want the cool video to make the base feel like they're actually doing something, even though the actual deportation numbers are not that high. So there's a real problem with that, in terms of they're just trying to make it look like they're being productive and they're not really. But in terms of like, do I feel bad that some people's night got ruined? No, not really. I mean, I knew full well going into this, like, if you want to efficiently deport people and actually do mass deportations, then, well, some innocents are going to unfortunately be caught up in it, and hopefully nothing too serious happens, to them. Like, obviously nobody died in this incident, so I think all is well. Some people were wrongfully, or not really wrongfully, but they were detained even though they were citizens, but they returned after a few hours, and now they have a cool story to tell their friends. So I don't think it's that big a deal that some people were inconvenienced. It's all for a greater good.
Inconvenienced. Inconvenience is the word we're going with there. Huh.
Oh yeah.
They were
And another
detained.
thing,
Go ahead.
well, and another thing, it's like I just fail to see how people get all up in arms. Like here's the thing, like, if I was pulled over by ICE, you know what I would do? I would say, oh, I'm an American. I work at X location. Here is my driver's license, which is a proof of citizenship that everybody should carry with them. And then they would say, "Okay, you're kosher. You can go on your way," and it would all be good. But I'm willing. I'm thinking that all these people saying, "Oh, how can they, racially profile, and how could they pull people over? Not everybody carries papers with them." I'm like, well, if actually you do, you carry a driver's license with you, and they have scanners these days. These real IDs that we got, they have a barcode in the back that can be scanned to see if it's real or not. So I don't know. It just seems so. I just don't get the kvetching about ICE. I mean,
Right, yeah,
that was
you
that
you
was
you
kind of
had
a
better,
different.
if you're walking around in the streets of America, you had better have your papers, and those papers had better be in order. Otherwise, we're going to take your happy ass to jail, where we may or may not send you to another country that you've never been. Yeah, yeah, that's what the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, it's in the
What the fuck is
it's
wrong
in
with
the
you? No,
service of a
no,
greater good.
no warrant, no due process. How do you prove? Isn't the burden on the ICE agents to prove that you're not an American citizen? Isn't that like the whole fucking point? Like
Well, if you
you
have,
can't stare at somebody and tell who is and who is not an American citizen. Okay?
well, I
And
I, I
and
grant.
and to counter what you're saying, I doubt that every single ICE agent has one of those scanners. All right, I severely doubt it. Especially, dude, they're making people that have never done anything before ICE agents nowadays. All right, bullshit that every one of them has a scanner. And B, even if they did, people shouldn't have to fucking show it to them.
I think so. I mean, think okay, when you go to buy liquor, you have to show your driver's license, proof of ID. When you
We
get
hold on,
pulled over,
time out. This is already a false equivalence. We have given that right to the government to force us, like through the democratic process. We have not given such a thing to ICE to where they can just pull over, detain you without cause, without a warrant, without a search order, anything. We have not bullshit. We've done that. Bullshit.
Well, there is reasonable cause, because if somebody looks like they might be illegal and you pull them
What does
over
that
and
look
they
like?
can't, well, obviously it means not white or not black, basically.
Gotcha. So as long as they look foreign, you're saying that
Yeah.
that is totally permissible to racially profile these people.
Yeah,
And
and that was
oh, you're out of
supported
your
by the
mind.
Supreme Court. That was supported by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, what a great track record they've had here recently.
Well, it's the law, and I mean, how else are you gonna? I mean, how else are you gonna do it? I mean, obviously, not every Hispanic person is an illegal. So when you pull them over, if they speak
Right, but you
passable
wait.
English, that's a good sign that they're
But
not illegal. But if
you're
they can't speak English, then that's the sign that you know they're probably illegal, and then you detain them for questioning.
right, but you're setting up a horrible process here where it's like, okay, not everyone is an illegal who's Mexican, but any Mexican can be illegal. That's basically your thought process. Is anyone who looks brown, tannish, they can be an illegal. So we have to question and lock down all of them. And then what? Oh, sorry, it's a personal inconvenience, but it's for the greater good. Well, I'll tell you what, Darren, I don't even know that that's necessarily true or supported by the American people. All right. Like, especially like the shit like this hardcore stuff specifically, definitely not. Definitely fucking not.
Well, the American people are not that intelligent. Yeah, I have to say. I mean, they voted for Trump, so AK, they voted for mass deportations as a result, and this is how mass deportations are carried out. I mean, you can't make the process more efficient. That if you put obstacles in the way, like and I would ask you this. I mean, how would they even bring people into suspicion of being illegal if they couldn't I guess racially profile? I mean, it's a necessary evil. I mean, yeah, it's not like we have a bunch of Swiss people pouring through the borders, or you know trying to think of some other far off group of people.
Definitely
It's
no
it's
Irish or
Hispanics.
Italian immigrants in here or their anchor babies. Definitely none of those
Yeah,
here.
well, they came in through Ellis Island, so they were vetted.
Okay, if you know the history of Ellis Island, you know damn well they were not vetted, right? That was a state. That was more of a quarantine zone than anything else, right? We were just making sure
Well,
they didn't
it was
pass on
something.
anything. And
It was something.
The Irish didn't get fucking any of that, or the Germans, right? So, um, and really, like a bunch of the 1980s, like the Mexicans, I'm sure as you know, like most of the illegal immigrants here now are like from Central and South America, right? But the Mexicans here also didn't go through any vetting process,
Oh yeah, they weren't
and
vetted at
it
all.
turned
But
out pretty fine, right? I mean, like it's not like there was a major national security risk, right?
well, it's not like they're all like part of a terrorist organization. So no, it's not bad in that sense, but it is bad in the sense that the proportionate share of whites is decreasing.
Well, I guess you got me there. I mean, that's checkmate. I mean, I'll just leave with this and then we'll move on. I completely disagree. I think that especially whenever you're doing shit like deploying the National Guard to help with these raids, and you're doing it against the will of the state and local governments. I think that's a huge problem. Detaining American citizens without a warrant, without probable cause, without any reason whatsoever, that's a problem.
Well, I
And
think okay. Oh, sorry, my bad.
I
Keep
was just
going.
going to say, finally, violating the due process of even illegals is incredibly wrong because if, like I said, if you're going to argue for rights only applying to illegals, then we have a problem because there's that's never worked out well ever. Candace Owens released on her podcast um, a series of screenshots between her and Charlie Kirk, and I'll go ahead and play that clip. It's only about a minute long.
Take a look. So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor. $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term. In my opinion, like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times after the dust settles a bit, maybe. So again, this is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down. Not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about.
Where basically she's saying that Charlie Kirk had, let's just say, some hesitancy on being pro-Israel because of a Jewish donor backing out. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts, poke your brain. What did you make of this? Do you think, I'm sure there's like tons of things to speculate here, but like, what did you think about all this?
It doesn't really change my opinion of Charlie too much. I think ultimately he was a good goy up until the day he died. I think, he exhibited some frustration that the Jews were not willing to play along with him, very in a fair way. He's losing out on $2 million a year because he won't distance himself from Tucker. Uh, you know, I think this is like a normal frustration to have when the Jews are in this case being a little too maximalist with him. They're not willing to tolerate any dissent on the issue. I think that's silly of them, but ultimately, I don't think Israel was at risk of losing Charlie.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that, listen, he might not like be a true believer in Israel like being our closest ally and all of that stuff, right? But I think that at the very least he saw it. It was like an opportunist position for him. He understood the base, and he understood the funding dynamic. I'm sure, as the audience knows and in politics, funding is an incredibly important aspect of political coalition building, and in order to do that, you're going to have to sacrifice some position building. The right is getting a significant portion of the pro-Israel lobby because the left appears to be going in a more anti to neutral Israel position. So Charlie Kirk obviously saw that. He's an incredibly intelligent guy. And he references losing this money, a $2 million a year, because of a Jewish donor didn't want Tucker and Candace Owens canceled. Or he did want Tucker and Candace canceled, and Charlie Kirk wouldn't do it. I kind of agree with you. There's really no convincing me that he wasn't going to be like firm with his alliance with Israel. That just seems to be part of the coalition that he was part of forging. And I think his job was to kind of like marginally increase the youth support for Israel, even though it was never going to completely overturn. But do you think that there would have ever been a point where it would have like he would have crossed the Rubicon and became not? He's obviously never going to be like Fuentes type, but do you think he would ever be like, you know what? No more military aid for Israel, or no more like UN support. Like, we're not going to veto stuff for you on your behalf anymore. Just curious what you think.
I think if Charlie were still alive and around 2028 when Trump was on his way out, then I could see a real pivot happening. But he was so inextricably linked with the Trump administration that I think a deviation on Israel just would not be tolerated. But when Trump was on his way out, maybe then he'd have a window, and there I could see him doing it, because at that point Trump would no longer be profitable. and he'd have to be on to the next thing. And the next thing may very well be Israel neutral or anti-Israel. We don't know. Uh, if the next thing is JD Vance, then it's still pro-Israel, but maybe less so than Trump. I it's hard to say.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's kind of hard to speculate, especially like I didn't know the guy personally, so I have no idea. But Candace is claiming that she does and he was. So I just think that it's really interesting. I am curious. I have some mild critiques of Candace on this matter. All she released was basically a screenshot, and it was her commentary on the screenshot. These have not been verified. I want to be very clear to the audience. I know we probably should have led with this, and I apologize for that, but these have not been verified by, a respected publication yet. So let's just hold out for a grain of salt that, like, we're assuming the truth and the validity of this. But I feel like Candace Owens, that burden is on her, right? to come out and
Yeah.
basically prove that this is who this is. Here's who was in this group. Here's who said what. I feel like that is all on her. And I understand she doesn't want to stab anyone in the back, but if this is really as valid as she claims, then why would any of the people in that chat be upset about it?
Yeah, well, my critique of her is that she's like drip feeding us information. If she had access to these texts uh, when Charlie Kirk was killed, then they should have been released within the week. They shouldn't have been released up until this point. If she's gonna peddle this theory that Charlie Kirk was gonna finally turn on the Jews, and for that Israel had him assassinated, then she needs to be releasing a whole lot more information. And
Well,
we
Well, I mean, I'm gonna cut her a little bit of slack. I'm gonna be slightly charitable, even though I don't know if Candace is the type of person that deserves charity, right?
Mhm.
Between she was mourning, she was in litigation with Brigitte Macron about, well, we all know, and I'm sure her legal team had to take a look at these documents, like these text messages, and figure out what they could and couldn't make public. So I'm sure there was some level. I'm sure. Listen, Turning Point USA could shoot her for basically leaking this as like non-disclosable information, right? So I'm sure that there are reasons. I'm not gonna like throw her to the wolves yet over this, but I do agree in some sense. Like I hope that this was the earliest she could have possibly released it, and I hope that she's not like opportunistically content creating so that way she can like churn out more views over the next like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I hope you're right, but I'm leaning towards it being opportunism because I've seen clips of her lately where it's like, and if you people don't stop harassing me, I'm gonna release more evidence, and then you'll know what's up. So to me, it sounds like, and I don't know, maybe she didn't have access to this specific screenshot in the past couple weeks, but to me, it sounds like she has a lot of stuff that she just hasn't released and that she's able to release, but for some reason is unwilling. So I don't know. I'm not willing to extend as much charity to Candace lately. She kind of sounds crazy and a tad opportunistic to me. So to me, she has to earn back a lot of trust.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I don't read too much into this, to be completely honest with you, other than like just some basic frustration with losing a donor. Like anyone who's ever had to raise funds before, whether it's for, little league football team or maybe it's a club or God knows what, church, whatever. Raising funds can be frustrating, especially if people who promise to donate or raise funds with you, they pull out. It's incredibly frustrating. So that's all I took this as. I didn't really. Now there is a text that specifically says that he's Charlie Kirk says, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. Ugh. I mean, that kind of like stabs you and me in the face, Darren.
Well, that does seem to lend credit to Candace's theory, but the thing is that she said these texts were within 48 hours of his death. Well, the morning of his death, he was consulting with, I believe it was a rabbi, on how to basically do better Hezbollah. So for Israel. So uh, you know, there might be it. You can cherry pick anything he said. You can cherry pick out a clip from when he went on Megyn Kelly and expressed frustration with the Jewish lobby. But the preponderance of evidence is that he was nothing other than a good goy. He was a total slave to Israel. So, maybe I'm sure he was totally venting frustrations here, and he has every right to do so. But he would have never. He, I don't see in a short time horizon him actually changing his stance in any substantial way.
Yeah, I listen. I it could be it. I disagree. I'll be honest. Sorry for the. I was catching my own brain there because trying to form the words, but I think he could have totally been in a transition period. That's at least possible to me. So, um, I don't see how you can like shut that off other than like just the fact that like because he's so like integrated in the Republican apparatus that would by necessity force him to be closely aligned with Israel and at least be publicly pro-Israel. That argument I can understand, but I could see like privately Charlie Kirk like resenting the Israel lobby and the Israeli government for almost feeling like entitled to their support. But that's just me.
Yeah, well, I hope, I do hope that that was the case. That if I'm taking the most charitable interpretation, maybe he would have eventually turned on them. But I mean, if the war in Gaza, or as I like to call it, the genocide, really has been going on for basically yeah, it's been almost 2 years now. So, uh, I mean, if you don't figure it out by now, I mean, I just don't get the slowness to change one's opinion. I feel like if you don't get it by now, you just weren't going to get it. Especially if you're somebody who's been, uh, you know, engaging with the subject matter like he has. It's not like he was somebody who just, every once in a while they saw a news story scroll, on their feed or on the TV. I mean, this guy, he knew quite a bit about the issue, and he still chose to be a supporter of Israel. So to me, I mean, yeah, he might have been in changing his mind, but I just kind of doubt it. I mean, uh, you know, there's a good possibility that almost 700,000 Palestinians are dead now, and it took you this long to figure it out that Israel is not,
Yeah.
uh, you know, act-
This isn't like a Charlie Kirk exclusive too, but if I had to guess, like the war in Gaza, well, as I agree with you. The genocide in Gaza, um, I think that this is going to end up kind of like the Iraq War. Like if you remember, suddenly, 75% of the country supported the Iraq War at the time, right? And then you get to 2012 and then you have all these people that are like, I never supported the Iraq War. Are you fucking insane? And it's like, well, it's like Nickelback. It's like that's not possible. Like somebody listen to these people, Like
yeah.
this
Oh, yeah.
cannot all be true. And I think that that's what I shouldn't joke about it, but that is what it's going to be like with Gaza's. All these people are going to say like I never supported it. I did everything I could to stop it, and then we're all going to know that that's not really true. And this isn't going to be something that you're going to be able to walk away from. And not only that, we're actually going to be able to see in high definition in 4K the impacts of the negligence of the United States government on the issue, whether it's dead kids, bombed schools, bombed hospitals, burned bodies, what tortured prisoners, whatever, right? Like it's you're not escaping this accountability. You're just not.
Oh yeah, I mean, if and when it ever happens, where we'll get reporters on the ground, it's going to horrify the entire world. But yeah, I think you're totally right in that prediction. Like, yeah, in 10 years from now, everybody is going to say it was a bad idea, we were against it. But in reality, pretty much the entire establishment media class was totally for it and supported it and
Oh,
gave
yeah,
it cover.
unilateral institutional support. Unilateral institutional support. It's absurd.